What do you want your kids to have that is different? Yes, I do want them to have a full life with family. What if I told you that the royal palace just started a huge investigation that could destroy everything Harry and Meghan have worked hard to build over the last 5 years? What if I told you that this study is about the most important and private part of their lives? Their kids? You and Lilibet, Archie? What if I told you that Meghan is said to be scared to death about what this investigation could find? Questions aren't just about papers or following the rules, they're about whether or not these kids are real. You did hear that right. Palace insiders are now publicly questioning whether or not the Sussex children exist at all. The government is so worried about it that they've put together a full constitutional review team to look into it. This is not a guess. You won't find this in a rag. There is a constitutional crisis going on right now inside Meghan's Montecito home and behind the palace walls. Before we drop this bombshell, make sure you hit the subscribe button and have alerts turned on. What we're about to say will shock you to your core. Let me know what you think below. Do you think the palace has the right to look into the birth records of the Sussex children? Or is this going too far? I need to know what you think because this isn't just about birth papers or following royal rules. It has to do with legitimacy. It has to do with blood. There should be no one sitting on the throne of this country under a fake name. Meghan, she had no idea this would happen. The investigation that no one saw coming, right now, something strange is going on behind the walls of Buckingham Palace. It wasn't a gossip or something out of a tabloid. It was something colder, quieter, and much more serious. Several people who work at the palace say that top advisors have started what they are calling an internal verification review regarding Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. Let me say that again. A review for proof. That's palace speak for, we need to make sure these children exist and were born according to royal rules. A move like this would be very strange for the king. What the crown hates is doubt. If there is any doubt about its lineage, it fears that more than scandal. One can lose their title. You can get rid of duties. But what about the bloodline? There are questions about who really is in line to take over and who isn't. Those make the whole organization shake. The government has followed this rule for hundreds of years. There can't be any question about the line of succession. One person who writes about the royal family was very clear: Meghan and Harry do not have the right to privacy in this case. Everyone has the right to know that no one with questionable authority will be able to sit on the throne of this country. This includes them. That is harsh, but it's the truth about what the government is going through right now. Protocols that have been in place for hundreds of years say that every royal child's birth must be recorded, watched, checked, and written down. There should be no holes, no misunderstandings, and no questions. But there are a lot of them when it comes to Archie and Lilibet. So why now? Why would the palace decide all of a sudden to talk about something they normally try to hide? So many contradictions have finally been brought to light that they can't be ignored any longer. There weren't any big mistakes, just small ones like missing details, wrong paperwork, and methods that didn't meet royal standards. These are all harmless little things that, when put together, make a disturbing pattern. When that trend got to high-level officials at Buckingham Palace, they started digging in a quiet way. The first thing they looked at was Archie's birth certificate, which had been changed since it was the first public record of the Sussex children. These days, a birth certificate is just some paper that is saved at the hospital and then lost in a drawer. For the royal family, though, it's a constitutional record, the first official proof of identity for someone who could one day be close to the line of succession. That paper should have everything that is written on it be clear, consistent, and permanent. That wasn't how Archie's birth record stayed, though. A few months after he was born on May 6, 2019, something changed in a quiet way. Rachel Meghan Markle, Meghan's full legal name, was taken off the paper. Take a moment to think about that. After the official birth certificate for a king had been filed and made public, someone changed it in government records. Only the title, Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex, showed up in its place. There is no first name or last name, only the style allowed by the crown. That kind of change is not only rare in royal government, it's almost never seen. The change needs to be made by someone. Someone has to say it's okay. There needs to be a record of it somewhere. And there has to be a good enough reason to change a future royal's foundational document. But when palace detectives looked back at that moment, something didn't make sense. The reasons given didn't make sense. Meghan said that the palace asked for the change so that it would be in line with royal custom. People who work at the palace said Meghan's side wanted it. She might be trying to separate herself from her legal name. There wasn't a clear storyline, and more importantly, there was no paper trail that showed why the cut was needed. Now ask yourself this: if you were a parent, would you take your name off of your child's birth record months after the fact? What good reason could there be for doing that? It gets even stranger from here. Police checked Archie's birth certificate against the California Birth Index, a database that keeps track of births in California. They found more mistakes in how the information was filed and logged. Some facts were the same. Some didn't quite line up. It looked like someone had paid close attention to what information showed up where and what information was purposely hidden. They also think that doubt is worse for the palace than scandal. Why was the certificate changed more than once if it had already been changed? What else in Archie's early history wasn't up to royal standards? Most importantly, did someone want to hide something? The study went even further with those questions, all the way to the day it was said Archie was born. The birthday list that doesn't make sense. The people who work for Palace started looking into Archie's birth again as soon as they got his birth certificate. And that's when the second set of problems showed up. Not big mistakes or scandals, just little things that didn't follow the royal pattern, things that the monarchy usually takes care of with military efficiency. First, there was the message. Every royal baby has been born in the same way for decades. A birth certificate that has been verified, an official medical statement, a palace bulletin that is posted on a stand outside of Buckingham Palace, and then a controlled picture opportunity. It has been done this way since 1837. You have to do it. It's required by the Constitution. Nothing went wrong when Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis were born. The easels had the names of the doctors, their notes, the baby's weight, time of birth, and references to the royal family. What about Archie's news? It was not the same at all. Meghan and Harry didn't follow the rules when they kept Archie's birth a secret for more than 8 hours. No one knew he was born. They also sent out a confusing news release that said Meghan was about to give birth after Archie was already born. Let me say that again. They told her she was in labor after the baby was supposed to be here. Why would they do that? Why lie to the people and the media on purpose? Because of this, everyone felt lied to because they were lied to. One royal expert said that they were just messing around with this, which hurt their reputation and trust. People were really annoyed and mad about it because they thought, why would you do that? Why do you lie to people? Why are you trying to trick them? When they finally did show Archie to the public, there was no hospital steps moment or confirmed witness statements. Instead, he made a short appearance a few days later. The whole world saw Meghan in a white dress holding a perfectly still baby while Harry stood next to her in a strange way. There were no doctors, palace officials, or standard easels with signed documents. Someone noticed that Harry was holding this baby that was totally still. It looked strange. It didn't seem right. It didn't look like a real family moment, it looked like a show. Then there was the location problem. At first, news stories said Meghan gave birth at the private Portland hospital, which is where she was said to have chosen. Later comments gave hints of a birth at home. Some people then said that there was a totally different hospital. Staff at the palace were said to have had trouble matching the schedule with normal royal processes behind closed doors. Midwives, doctors, and high-level government officials who sign and watch important moments are often present at royal births. Because it has to be, everything is written down. But palace detectives found holes in Archie's timeline when they looked at it. There were not enough witnesses or hospital confirmations, it was unclear which medical staff were actually present, and paperwork that should have been filed right away was filed late. These issues were not serious enough to say that wrongdoing occurred, but they raised enough concerns to ask if the process was followed to the letter. And now for the important part. There is a reason for royal etiquette. It's not about being bossy or stuck in the past. In order to make sure that no one ever questions whether a royal child is real and in the line of succession, an unbreakable chain of proof is being set up. But that chain is very broken when it comes to Archie. The pregnancy that made people disagree. We need to talk about something that might cause trouble now. Something that has been talked about behind closed doors for more than 3 years but not often in the mass media. What kind of surrogate did Meghan Markle use? This question has been going around since Archie was born. Now that the palace is doing an official study, that question is being asked at the very top of the royal family. To be clear, I'm not accusing anyone. As part of their verification check, palace investigators are now looking into what I'm writing about. And what they're looking at are the differences between how Meghan has looked while pregnant. During her pregnancy with Archie, strange things were noticed about her. The bump seemed to change size a lot from one look at another, getting bigger and smaller in ways that didn't seem to be normal for pregnancy. The bump seemed to shift or move in ways that didn't seem normal for a pregnant woman at times that were caught on camera. A video that went viral showed what many people called the moon bump event, where Meghan's pregnant belly looked like it folded or fell apart when she sat down in public. Defenders say that these observations are just the result of different clothes and camera angles, or that they are part of a conspiracy theory. But inspectors from the palace aren't throwing them out. They are collecting all of Meghan Markle's public appearances, photos, and videos from while she was pregnant, and comparing them to medical guidelines for how a pregnancy should grow at different stages. A source said, "The question isn't whether people believe conspiracy theories or not. The question is whether there is proof of a normal birth according to the rules of royal medicine. And right now, that data is either not there or is not consistent." Allow us to now talk about Lilibet. Because Lilibet's timeline is much more important to the house than Archie's, which was already questionable. The riddle of Lilibet. Archie's timeline was not clear, but Lilibet's birth made things even less clear. The palace had never had to deal with so much doubt before. Why? Because Meghan and Harry's team in California were the only ones who told people about her coming. There were no British doctors, no royal medical staff, no palace bulletin, no traditional easel outside of Buckingham Palace, and not even a statement from the royal family to back up what was said. Instead, the public got a well-written news release and a few carefully chosen photos. It would be normal for any other famous person to do that. For a child with royal blood and a place in the line of succession, it goes against everything that has been done for hundreds of years. Royal babies are usually checked by doctors who are approved by the crown. The records are filed right away with the right witnesses. The position has been confirmed and written down. But Lilibet didn't show any of those recognized pillars. And as the schedule was put back together, the contradictions got worse. Meghan's pregnant appearances during the COVID pandemic, which were caught on Zoom calls and a few paparazzi shots here and there, didn't paint a clear picture. In some pictures, she looked like she was further along in her pregnancy. Others didn't have much of a bump to see. One person who follows the royal family said that during the pandemic, we didn't see Meghan very often, so it was hard to tell how the pregnancy was going. And they might have meant to do that. But this is what really made the palace nervous. The language in the birth notice itself was very careful. It was never made clear that Meghan gave birth to Lilibet herself. It's what lawyers call plausible deniability, as one expert said. They want to be able to say, "Hey, we never said in that announcement that she actually gave birth." By law, they're hiding their faces. There is also the matter with the doctor. It is said that the doctor who delivered Lilibet shut down her business just 2 weeks after the birth. There was no justification or sending of information, it was just gone. Why would a doctor who just delivered a royal baby shut down all of a sudden? In Meghan's formal statements, that sentence, that important piece of information, is missing. Investigators from the palace say that absence was done on purpose. A source close to Meghan Markle said that she didn't include certain sentences in formal statements because she knows they could get her in trouble with the law. She needed a good reason to lie. On their own, these facts don't mean anything. When added to the fact that there is no royal paperwork, they make a trend that the palace can't ignore. But it wasn't the birth itself that raised the most red flags. What came next was it? What happened should have made Lilibet a queen for life. Christening for her. Or rather, the baptism that didn't seem to happen. At least, the Church of England can't find any proof of that. It might have looked like a sweet family moment at the christening that wasn't a christening. Blessings, candles, godparents, and pictures. In the kingdom, though, it's against the law. A child is officially connected to the Church of England through a royal naming. The Church of England is deeply connected to the crown. It is the monarchy's first public spiritual and historical record of the child's identity. Royal christenings are supposed to be confirmed and recorded by people who were there. There are paper tracts for even private ceremonies. There is always a form, a record, or a statement from the office of the Archbishop of Canterbury. In royal circles, this is why Meghan's news about Lilibet's baptism in California set off alarm bells right away. If the service followed the rules set by the Church of England, there would be a clear record in the official church records. But when palace officials quietly looked through the church's records, they didn't find anything with Lilibet's name on it. There was no entry, signature, or acknowledgement from the Archbishop's office. There was not even a secret acknowledgement that the ceremony had been done according to Church of England rules. That wouldn't happen to most kids. For a child who was officially in line to become King or Queen of Britain because she is a princess, there is a constitutional problem. Lilibet's family ties aren't just unclear without that record. The school thinks it's not enough. Take a moment to think about that. According to the monarchy's rules, Lilibet hasn't been officially accepted as a member of the royal family if there's no proof that she was christened by someone authorized by the Church of England. She lives in California as a child and has royal titles tied to her name, but there is no constitutional basis for those titles. That missing piece was the last straw that made Buckingham Palace move on to the next step, which was to put together a full private case file with effects on the law and the Constitution. There were fundamental laws that had to be looked over again by advisors before the palace could make any choices in 1917. These laws say who is officially a member of the royal family and who is not. In this point, the 1917 letters patent became important. It is a dry, historical document that was written during World War I by King George V. It lists which descendants of the monarch are eligible for royal titles and legal recognition. But that old legal language hides a much more important constitutional concept. Being a royal isn't just a sign of power. It has to be able to be checked properly. Child must meet a number of requirements in order to be accepted by the crown as an ia de puellos. 1. A clear family tree that the government can check thoroughly by looking at official records. 2. A birth that follows all the rules for royal medicine and has the right witnesses and paperwork. 3. Religious events and confirmations that are led by the Church of England and are properly registered. These aren't optional practices or old ways of doing things. These are constitutional protections, rules that are meant to keep things clear, stop false claims, and stop arguments about who really has the right to be in the line of succession. These steps are simple and easy to follow most of the time. There are many medical professionals watching over royal births in the UK, as well as many witnesses, full records, and instant official filing. But too much happened outside of that system with Archie and Lilibet. Foreign births that didn't have royal medical oversight, witness statements that weren't checked by officials allowed by the palace, timelines that weren't checked and were in conflict, documents that were lost or changed, and ceremonies that didn't have official records that could be found. One expert on constitutional law said that monarchy is open to change on many issues, such as titles, tasks, and even work arrangements, but they cannot change how they prove lineage. That's the one thing that the whole organization can't be built on. That brings us to the question that's taking over the House right now. Do Archie and Lilibet really meet the standards set out in the Constitution to keep their titles and stay in the line of succession? What should happen next if the answer is no, or even if it's not clear? The case for Buckingham Palace is being made. The Buckingham Palace changed from just watching to a thorough, well-planned review as soon as the naming question came up. Not a public investigation or a show for the media, but a quiet internal case file, the kind that the monarchy uses when something truly goes against hundreds of years of royal practice. The review was done in secret with the help of senior advisors, royal archivists, constitutional lawyers, and clerical liaisons from the Church of England. It wasn't their job to say that someone did something wrong. It wasn't a feeling. It wasn't about them. It was rough and simple. Make a list of all the steps that were taken to get Archie and Lilibet there, and then compare each one to royal standards. In a private royal office, they made what people inside the palace call a timeline wall. The Crown looked at birth announcements, public statements, medical records, or the lack thereof, ceremonies, documents, and every other public and private detail they could find. As they carefully filled in the dates and compared sources, more problems showed up, like witness statements that were missing or incomplete, which should have been standard, and hospital confirmations that should have been automatic. There was confusion and disagreement about which medical staff were actually there, paperwork that should have been filed within hours was filed days late. Meghan Markle's team gave different accounts, Harry's statements and palace records were different. There were religious ceremonies without any official Church of England records, births happened without royal medical supervision, signatures and paperwork that didn't follow standard royal procedures, and photos and videos that raised questions about the pregnancy's progress. All of these things were not exactly explosive or definitive on their own, but when put together, they made a pattern that the Crown could not ignore. Because for the monarchy, not knowing about a family tree is more dangerous, more threatening, and more existentially troubling than bad news. A timeline that is disputed or not proven causes constitutional doubt. Institutional authority is weakened by doubt. And legitimate power is what the government is built on. As the case file grew longer and more detailed each day, one question could no longer be avoided. What does this study of the Constitution mean for Meghan, Harry, and their kids? Montecito is in a panic. There is no way that the mood in Montecito right now is like the peaceful pictures that Meghan puts on social media. To be clear, Meghan and Harry know that an official royal review is not the same as public criticism, bad press, or bad headlines. Meghan is in danger in more ways than one. It's hurting the business and bringing down the empire. Being a modern duchess and a mother of royal children has been the center of her identity since she stopped being a princess. Someone who left the palace but still brought all of its mystery, power, and fame around the world. That royal mystery is what made the huge Netflix documentaries, the multi-million-dollar book deals, the high-profile interviews, the lifestyle and health brands that use her name, and the whole American Riviera orchard image she's been trying to project possible. But what does a royal mother do when the government questions whether her children are really royal? What happens to a queen when the palace itself isn't sure if her family tree can be proven in line with the Constitution? Everything changes because of that. Every object she sells carries the promise of a royal connection. In every conversation, she talks about how proud she is to be a mother of titled children. Every picture she posts is valuable because people think it's official from the royal family. Take that away, or even deeply question it, and see what's left. Another famous person in California trying to sell things in a market that's already full. This has an even bigger effect on Harry because it's not about business or branding. This is about his core character and the place in the world of his children. As a child, Harry was told that his family tree was important. That his place in the royal family was safe and that his children would naturally play a role in the future of the kingdom. He thought that his children would still be a part of something bigger, something old and important, even if he stopped doing his royal tasks. But now he's seeing how that whole set of beliefs might fall apart. Sources close to the situation say that Harry has been calling senior royals over and over, upset and angry, and even begging for some kind of resolution or explanation. But the palace is getting farther away and less attentive. Feelings don't count when the crown is dealing with the law and the Constitution. Relationships with other people don't matter anymore. The review is taking place as required by the organization. No matter what Meghan or Harry say, no amount of begging or explaining can stop this process once it starts. A person who works at the palace said that Harry keeps asking, "How can they do this to my kids?" But he's missing the point very much. This is not what the crown does to anyone. They are making sure that the organization stays true to its constitutional principles. They've always done that. They will always do that. Staff members who work with the Montecito family say that the present atmosphere is unbearably suffocating. Meghan is said to pace the house late at night with her phone in her hand, constantly checking the news, social media responses, and calls to law advisors and PR experts. He's sitting somewhere else. He was clearly stressed out and emotionally drained as he read through endless stories and tried to figure out what this meant for the future of his family. This isn't just a review or a probe. Everything they've built since leaving the royal family is in danger because of this. Things are looking bad for the kids' future. Let's talk about what this means for Lilibet and Archie. Because this isn't just about Meghan and Harry's business or identities. This is about those kids' whole future and who they are. If the palace goes through with any kind of official reclassification or title loss without enough proof, those kids will have to deal with questions and rumors for the rest of their lives. There are doubts about their legitimacy. There are doubts about whether they are truly royal. There are doubts about whether or not they really fit in the line of succession. They wanted to know why their own parents couldn't or wouldn't show the right paperwork. A royal observer said it straight out, this will be talked about for as long as Archie and Lily live. Some of the questions they might answer are about IVF and paperwork. For decades, they'll have to blame their parents for the questions they have about constitutional standing because they wouldn't follow the rules. That's the sad part of it all. Meghan and Harry have always said that they made all of their decisions to keep their kids safe and private. But they may have done the opposite by breaking the rules, being purposely private, and refusing to follow the same verification standards that every other royal has followed for hundreds of years. They may have left Archie and Lilibet with questions, rumors, and doubts for the rest of their lives. Imagine Archie as he is 25 years old and trying to figure out who he is. Will he be able to get a job with his royal title? Will companies and organizations recognize that title is real, or will they question whether it is legal? Think about Lilibet when she is 30 and she is trying to write a biography or make her own brand. Will she spend half the book defending her presence and right to be there instead of telling her story? These are what happens in the real world when the Constitution is unclear. Royal titles are more than just fancy words or decorations for events. They are important in terms of the law, the Constitution, and history. For the world, and especially the monarchy, to accept your children as king or queen, you can't just give them a title without proper proof and paperwork. The palace is now asking for that proof. And Meghan Markle and Harry might not be able to give it to you. The three scenarios that could happen. Now that Buckingham Palace has carefully and quietly put together its full case file, we've hit the last and most important step, the one Meghan and Harry are most afraid of. That part where the government decides what to do with what they've learned. And this is what you need to know. No matter what, the Crown always picks the choice that keeps the institution safe. Not people, not feelings, and not public relations. There are three possibilities that constitutional experts are currently talking about. Each one would change everything about Archie and Lilibet in massive ways. Choice 1. Titles that are frozen and won't be recognized again. The palace could just stop adding to, changing, or publicly recognizing the titles of the children in any way. There will be no big changes or public announcements, there will only be a quiet, lasting freeze. Archie and Lilibet would legally still be listed with their titles on royal genealogy websites, but they would not be recognized in the future, be included in royal events for ceremonies, or have any active roles in the institution. It would fade out slowly. They would only exist in name on paper, they would not exist in practice in a kingdom that actually worked. This choice gives the palace a good reason to say they are not guilty while removing the children's real royal status. Option 2 is to quietly change your status to private person. The palace could reclassify the children as private people living outside of the royal structure without making a fuss or sending out a news release. There was no public drama and no official comments. Their names would slowly move down or disappear from government records and pages. In royal records, they would only be seen as Harry's children, with ties to the Sussex family, but they would not have any official constitutional rights. They'd still be Harry's children, but they wouldn't be part of the working royal family or the official royal family in any way. This choice lets the palace keep the institution away from constitutional issues without directly questioning anyone's right to be there. Option 3, titles and succession rights are officially taken away. This move is the strangest, coldest, and most important one. And this internal study now makes it constitutionally possible to do. If the official paperwork doesn't show that birth procedures were followed or that bloodline standards were met according to the 1917 letters patent, the Crown is legally allowed to take away titles and remove people from the line of succession. There was no anger, emotion, or personal grudge. The monarchy was just doing what it was required by the law to do, protect the legitimacy and integrity of the line of succession. This has never happened before in the modern history of the royal family. What about the Constitution and the law? It's totally up to the palace, and some might even say it's their job to do it. One constitutional expert said that the Crown can and probably should act if there is real doubt about whether children meet the documented requirements for royal status. This would stop any future constitutional challenges. Which choice seems most likely? Insiders at the palace say that the monarchy is moving toward either option 1 or option 2, which would protect the institution without making a huge show for everyone. However, if Meghan and Harry fight back hard, either by suing or going public with their claims, the palace may feel like they have to choose option 3 in order to settle the issue legally. And that's the real point of this whole study. The Crown always makes it through problems with institutions. People and their thoughts don't change. Meghan and Harry's business success after they became royal was based on the royal mystery and the idea that they were real royal children. But the palace is where all the political power and legal papers are kept. And they can take away everything Meghan and Harry have built with just one official statement, one official decision, or one legal opinion from constitutional experts. The palace has begun a constitutional study of Archie and Lilibet's birth records and other paperwork that has never been done before. They are putting together a full court case that looks at every mistake, missing step in the process, and departure from royal standards. Reports say Meghan is scared of what this investigation will find and how it will affect her carefully built brand. Right now Harry is stuck. He wants to protect his family but also knows that the organization he can never fully leave has constitutional duties that go beyond his personal loyalty. And their kids? They might have to deal with questions about their right to be king or queen, their titles, and their place in royal history for the rest of their lives. Because their parents didn't follow the rules and instead broke them. The crown can do three clear things: freeze the titles, quietly change the children's status, or officially take away their royal status. Once this constitutional process starts, no one can stop it, not Meghan, not Harry, not their lawyers, not their public relations experts. The royal family doesn't care about Netflix deals, Oprah interviews, or negative reactions on social media, so it doesn't base its choices on fame or public support. It only cares about one thing: keeping the institution's constitutional structure safe for the next 500 years. It doesn't matter if that means making tough, hard choices about the Sussex children. The crown will always be around. People and their thoughts don't change. I need to hear from you now. Do you agree that the palace has the right to review the Constitution? Should Meghan and Harry be legally forced to give all of their children's documents? Or is this an invasion of privacy that isn't fair and goes against moral standards? Do you believe the reports about the surrogate? Do you really think this is a civil issue? Does the palace have something bad to say about Harry and Meghan? Write what you really think in the space below. Every single one of them. I want to know where you stand on this very dangerous situation and if you want to be kept up to date on every single new development in this constitutional problem as it happens. If you want to join, make sure you hit the button and the bell. Because believe me, the study is only beginning. If the palace makes its choice, it might change everything we thought we knew about the Sussex family. It's not even close to over. Thanks for seeing. I'll see you in the next one.